What's up, the good people of YouTube? So today, right, I know it's been a long time, but we're finally coming back. So today we're going to be working on the Honda, right? The reason we're working on the Honda is because we actually need to get this car sold. We just bought a nice 2006 Forester. We'll put in a nice little montage of the car when we get a chance to, but today's not about that car. Today's about paying off that car. So we need to get this Honda all good and sorted. So here's what we're going to do. So the biggest flaw on this car currently is the bumper, bonnet, and a couple nicks and dings here and there. So what we got to do is we got to get the body looking quite a bit better. So other than the fact that it's really dirty, the issue that we have here is this over here. So as you can see, the bumper cracked all the way down there, through to there, up and around there. We did fix this during lockdown, but the problem was we worked with what we had at the time. We had a couple of, like, what do you call it, something similar to Q-Bond, which is a plastic filler. We tried to fill that with the plastic filler and get everything sorted. We were doing this during lockdown, so we had very limited availability of resources at the time, and what happened was it ended up cracking all over again. So what happened here, from what I can tell, is the previous owner drove into a pole. Not very high speed or anything like that. It was just, as far as I remember, I spoke to her previously about it, and she said there was a pole in somewhere, parking lot or something, and they just pooped into the pole. So there's no structural damage on the car, it's just the bumper itself. So the game plan here is to pull the bumper off, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do essentially plastic joining. We're going to use some staples, we're going to heat those up, we're going to push them into the back of the bumper to get the actual hole or gap closed up. From there we're going to throw some fiberglass at the back as reinforcement, and then we're going to go through on the front. We're going to sand that down nicely, and then we will throw body filler over it and get it all nice and flat, get it primed, and then also do our clear coat as our color and clear coat. So the color's on order, we're waiting for that to come through. I got the clear coat, I got the body filler, I've got everything else in place to start with the prep work on this. So while that's also off, we're also going to be doing a little bit of headlight repair, just because, as you can see, it's looking a little bit crusty. So we're just going to take that and we're going to do a nice little, put a new gloss, a new sheen onto it. How we do that is we're going to sand that down, and then we're going to put a new clear coat on it. It's a 2K clear, so it has UV protection and everything in. I had previously done these, but the only thing was I used like a 50 Rand can of paint, which is like $2 for you Americans and your freedom dollars. So we're going to throw a new clear coat on there, one that has UV protection, and that should prevent the yellowing from happening again in future. So yeah, let's start with getting everything off. Okay, so here we can have a little bit of a better look at what needs to be done. So as you can see here, all of this white stuff here, that used to be something called Q-Bond, if I'm not mistaken. It was a plastic bonder, and if you look over here, this was what I just pulled up with my nail. So clearly don't use that stuff. I did sand a little groove there and sand everything around and tried to make sure that there was adhesion, but that seemed like that didn't work in the slightest. So I was worried that it was going to be an effort to try and get the stuff off, because we need to get everything off and then try and sand a slight groove into everything. We want to also then put the staples everywhere like that, which will melt directly into the plastic. And then once that's done, we'll lay the fiberglass over top, back here, obviously sand down a little bit of a bigger area so that there's better adhesion, and then we'll lay the fiberglass, put the epoxy on top of it, and for the back it's basically just going to get sprayed, and then in the front we'll go through with the body filler. So the first thing we need to do is pull off the number plate. We need to pull off the grill itself over there, a little fake toe strap. That was just for aesthetics, just for in case anyone was wondering. It was definitely not meant to tow anything, I just like the look of it. But in any case, let's get all of this stuff here cleaned up, that off, that off, that off, and then we can start with everything else. that took long enough. Now for a whole bunch of sanding. Okay, so we've also gone through with the Dremel, and as you can see, we've created a nice little groove everywhere, and anywhere there was a sharp edge, right, we've gone through and Dremeled that and made that nice and smooth up. Now, the reason for doing that is, I don't know if it's actually something, but essentially you want to take away as much stress on this edge as possible, right, because that would cause another crack. So creating a curve there creates better distribution, so it won't crack along there again. The next thing that we have to do is, at any point that the crack stops, we have to go and drill those points out so that, again, you're distributing the force over a larger area. So instead of having a sharp point where the crack could continue spreading, it runs into essentially a cul-de-sac, and then the force isn't distributed continuing through the bumper if any stresses are placed on it again. So we're going to go and drill out all those points next, and then yeah, this is how we're looking so far. Not too shabby, but let's get to it. So I think we're ready to go on to the next stage of this, right? So here's the thought process, and hear me out, right? We're gonna, you see I've got the bumper suspended here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna try and line up the cracks and everything like this, right? In a way where the surfaces are almost completely flush with one another. When I say almost, I mean completely flush with one another. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a bunch of staples, right? And hear me out. But the staples, the point of the staple is we're going to place them in the plastic like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take soldering iron. We're going to replace the tip with a screw or a bolt of sorts, and then we're going to heat it up till we melt that into the plastic itself. So now I've got two options here. I can either do them upright like that, put that there like that. So we can either do them upright across the joint, or we can do it flat and sideways like that. This gives it more rigidity in the full sense, and we just stack them all the way along all of these little holes. We don't have to do them right behind one another. It's just going to be spaced out in a manner that it provides the most rigidity. The point of the steel is to just hold the plastic together. Now, when that's done, we're going to then overlay the fiberglass, not carbon fiber. We're going to overlay the fiberglass at the back once everything is all sitting nice and flush together. Once that's done, that's when we have the opportunity to then flip it over and do the body fill on the other side. So I won't put you on the time lapse yet. Let's try and get one or two done. See if the thought process actually works. Once we've proved that the thought works, then I'll put you guys on a time lapse and show you a couple of them. And then we'll move on to when the back end is done with just the staples. So here's what we've done. We've removed the pin from the top of the soldering iron, and we've replaced it with a flathead screw. Now the plan is, right, the pin is going to be kind of difficult to distribute heat, but if we have a large surface, we get that into place, we heat this thing up, and we push down. That will then stick the actual staple into the plastic, seeing as this is ABS, should melt and go through pretty quickly. The other option was to basically put each staple into the end of the solder and go, but I don't think that's going to work because the screws that hold the piece in place don't actually extend that far down. So let's try this and see if this works or not. Okay, so it appears the concept works. And yeah, let me put you guys onto a time lapse and we'll carry on doing this. So you can see it doesn't look the prettiest, but the lovely thing is that's me like trying to, oh, that one's hot still. That's me trying to flex it. As you can see over there, it's still very flexible where there are breaks. But there, yes, they are staples. So yeah, there where the staples are, there we go. We've got structural rigidity between the two pieces, and that should allow for a little bit of flex while keeping everything all nice and together. Well, that ends off day 2. It is already 4:45 in the afternoon, but we are finally done. If we have a look down here, you'll see we've rectified all of these pieces here, the crack down along the edge. As we go up, we had the huge crack that ran all the way up here, across and over to the number plate itself. On the other side of the number plate holder, there was that large crack in there. And then if we go back to the top, this is where the main huge one was. It ran all the way from here up around through this way, up there, around there, through there, and then up there, and disconnected this here completely. So this is how we're looking on the other side. If we go through here, you can see everything going on here. And just to show you how strong this actually is, it's fully flexible, still moves with the bumper itself. Everything is nice and solid, you know. There we go. But yeah, I know it doesn't look great right now, and if you look close up, these are quite deep. We do have a big hole over there that we have to still fill, but we're going to go through now with the fiberglass, and I need to find the ratios and then flip it back over. We're going to reinforce it with the fiberglass on the back side, just cover up all of the staples and everything else that's there in the back. That's also going to give a little bit more rigidity behind this. Now, there's two ways to think about this. You don't want it to be too rigid, seeing as this is plastic. Like I said, you can see it's pretty strong at this point. Seeing as this is plastic and it flexes quite well, the minute you add fiberglass in, it is going to make it more brittle. But because we're just going to be adding it in certain sections, I believe that we'll still maintain a little bit of flexibility, and the rigidity is not too bad, especially because of where we are on the bumper itself. I don't think that's going to be a problem. So let's try and find the ratios, mix all of that up, and then get to applying on the back. And here we go. Here's everything we're going to use for the fiberglass application, right? So first of all, we've got our rag and we've got some acetone. We're going to wipe down the entire surface, make sure it's clear of contaminants. We have a pair of shears and we have the fiberglass itself. Throwaway container, throwaway mixing dish, throwaway measuring spoon because we don't have scales or anything here. Then we have the epoxy and the hardener, and then a throwaway brush, right? Remember, the mixing spoons and all of those types of things, you got to throw those away at the end of it because it will have build-up on it. So just be careful of that. Your brush might obviously harden. You're putting epoxy through it that you're going to use that to brush on. And then the brand of epoxy we're using is called Glaker. Don't know anything about it. It was offered to me by the body shop. And then the hardener. So the general ratio of epoxy to hardener, just as a general guideline, is generally 1 ounce to 14 drops or 30 milliliters per 14 drops. When I did the calculation, the total bottle, or all the amount of drops for the amount of epoxy that we have here, would be 224, which is roughly 11 milliliters, and that's about a 30 ml bottle. So it seems about right. I know a lot of times they overgive one or the other. So that's going to be the ratio of that. We're going to probably go with about 60 to 90 mils. I think I'm going to go with 90 mils initially, and then we'll mix that together. So 90 mils of the epoxy will go into that container, and then we'll throw in 14 times 3, 54 or something like that, drops of hardener in there. We'll mix that all together. We'll lay one coat of epoxy. We'll then put the fiberglass on top, cut it to shape, and then we'll throw more epoxy over that. The fiberglass that I'm using today is an 80 gram chopped strand mat, so it is
quite thick, and it's basically just meant for reinforcement. It's or heavy layups. It's not meant for fine detail or anything like that. So I think it'll work perfectly for the application that we have now. So let's go through, clean everything up, mix everything up, and then get our first layer and the fiberglass laid down. Before people jump in the comments and be like, oh, that's not done properly, blah, 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 blah. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's just meant for reinforcement. I don't think I did too bad for my first time out. I do see that there are quite a bit of air bubbles. I'm going to try and get those ones sorted, but all in all, I think it's looking quite good. We got all the sections covered as we needed to, and yeah, now we just have to wait for all of this stuff to dry up, and then from there we can continue.
Okay, so it's a little while later, I think like about a week. We got the fiberglass and everything laid up last week. This week we went through and I basically scuffed the bumper and got everything ready for us finally to do the body filler, and then we're going to do sanding and primer and everything today. So let me show you guys the back of it, and I'm going to show you the front and how we're going to mix up the body filler.
So this is how the back is looking. Everything looks quite good, quite neat and tidy, and everything is in place, which is the most important part, right? Let me flip this over and show you the front. So we started sanding everything down. As you can see, we try to get things mostly as flat as they need to be for the time being. We've also gone through and scuffed the entire bumper and cleaned it up with a little bit of turpentine, which is down there. So we cleaned it all off, we scuffed everything down, we've added some terps, well, just to get the surface clean, and then now we're going to go and do the mixing of our body filler, right? So this is what we got for body filler: MIPA P35 plastic, right? So I was told by the body guy, if I can't fix my life with this, it's too late for me. So as far as the German that I can read, I see 2% of hardener, right? So what we've gone and done is done a small calculation, and we've calculated the hardener will go in there, and then the actual filler itself will go in there. I'm hoping that's going to be enough. I'm worried that it's not going to be, but we can always mix up a second batch after the fact. But yeah, so essentially we're going to fill that section there with hardener. The way I did the calculation was 4 millimeters over here versus 200 millimeters, 1 centimeter thick or 10 mils thick, would give us a 2% ratio. Then all I did was I tripled that in width and then tripled that in width, and now there we go. If I fill that entire line with hardener and that entire line with body filler, we should have a 2% hardener to body filler ratio. We're then going to go and take that all, and we're going to go and fill in all of these areas over here. We have a provided spatula, so how you do this is you scoop it out, get it into that little box, we pour that out into that line over there, and then we mix everything together for like a good minute or so. This is just a piece of cardboard so that we can throw this away afterwards, and then we're going to take the little spatula, what do you call that thing? Squeegee? We're going to take the squeegee, I don't know what it's called, but we're going to take the squeegee, and then we're going to go through and fill in everything there. So that's going to be all of these areas here. We're going to try and overfill everything, right, including some other small pieces over there. Just try and get it as neat as possible. We're going to try and overfill everything, and then we're going to come through with the sanding block and bring everything down roughly. And then once everything's down roughly, we're just going to clean it off a little bit, check that everything is smooth, then go through with a finer grit and try and refine the edges and everything there. We want to keep in mind, we want to retain certain body lines, right? So we need to look at this body line that runs all the way through there. We need to follow that body line there. There's an indent over here that we want to follow, and we essentially want to recreate exactly what we see on this side here. On this edge, we want to make sure that this body line matches that. It's not very intense. Fortunately, it's not a very body line heavy car, so the most intense section is going to be over here. So yeah, let's get to mixing this stuff up, and then we'll lay it down and see how it goes. So this hardened a lot faster than I expected. Not going to lie, that was a very quick 5 minutes. So as you can see, it's not the smoothest layup. We're going to come through and sand this down. I'm probably going to have to do a second coat because of the fact that I didn't get full coverage everywhere. Like I said, this thing hardened a lot quicker than I expected. Maybe I put a little bit too much hardness. I'll reduce a little bit the next time. But all in all, it looks like we got good coverage on most of the areas. We still need to do that section there, and that section there, and the little scratch over there. Once we wait for this to dry, it's already mostly dry to the touch. It's just got to cure for about 30 minutes so that it's dry all the way through. We got the big holes plugged, we got all of that done. So just take off this extra nonsense. One thing I can say is I regret putting it on my fingers because this isn't fun to get off. Yeah, other than that, let's give it a little bit of time. We'll come back and start flattening everything down. Okay, so everything is now all dry and ugly, right? Next up, we're going to use this pad over here with our, I think this is like about a 60 grit. So this is specifically made to pull as much material off of the body filler as possible. So we're going to use that to get this kind of to the right thing, and then we're going to go with a finer grit and try and just refine it a little bit, see where we need to put in more body filler, and then we'll do this process once again. Okay, so this is how we're looking so far. Not looking too shabby, I might say. A couple of little bit of high spots. This is where we're actually going through the plastic. I want to see how that's going to react when we actually put the primer on it, because currently these spots look rough, right? So hopefully the primer will sort that out, but other than that, it's feeling quite smooth. I can feel slight high spots there. So for anyone doing this, you've probably watched a million videos on this, but close your eyes and run your hand across it. And as you run your hand across, you may think that you don't have what it takes to feel it, but you will definitely feel high and low spots. So then you can feel exactly where there's a little bulge, and you know that you need to take a little bit more off. Then you can feel where it's low, and you know you need to put a little bit back on. So it's going to be a couple more hours of doing this. Trying to get this section refined is also going to be quite a little bit of a task. Gonna have to try and see what we can do there, but we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna go with the second coat. I don't think I'm gonna film all of that because, yeah, you guys just saw me do basically all of that. We're just gonna repeat it a few times, and then I'll see you guys when we're about to do the primer itself. So just to fill you in on what we did was we sanded it down, we then threw on a little bit of primer, a little bit of black as guide coat, checked for high low spots, refilled with body filler, that's what it's called, and then sanded down again. We've gone up this time to a 400 grit, nice and smooth. We've also wiped it down with some thinners once again, so the surface should be nice and good. We should now be able to go through, throw the primer on there. I know it doesn't look perfect right now, but let's throw the primer on there and see how it looks after that. So after just the primer, she's looking pretty good. We got primer laid down everywhere. We went across the whole bumper essentially, just because we wanted to touch up anywhere that may be faulty. You will see a little bit of tiger striping, it's not a big deal. There are some issues though, so to be completely transparent with all of you, you see all of this here. So that is actually where glazing putty would have come in really well. I don't have glazing putty, but essentially that was when we were busy sanding. We would sand the actual plastic and it became very coarse. You can see in a couple of places over here. But all in all, I don't think it looks too bad. I feel like we can try and get a lot of that out now when we go over this with 600s and 800s, all of those types of things. So we're going to sand this quite nicely and then we'll throw on the base coat. But all in all, can barely see where there was any cracks before. Body line follows on quite nicely. I think it looks pretty good. So things got a little bit out of hand and I just ended up laying down a layer of base coat yesterday. Probably a bad idea on my part. As you can see, we need to add a little bit more there. We got a little bit of tiger striping. But all in all, the color's looking really good. The reason I say things got a bit out of hand and I need to fix up some things is, remember I was showing you guys this over here. So I'm not happy with this finish. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and run through some of these areas with the two slightly higher grits. I think I'm going to stop at 800. Remember, we still want some type of mechanical bond. And if we go too smooth, we remove the ability for the paint to grab on nicely. So what we're going to do is we're going to start sanding through some of this with higher grits. So I think I'm going to start at, I think we'll go 400, 600, 800 if I have those, or 400 straight to 800. And we're going to try and get this a little bit smoother. Yeah, I didn't expect this to be perfect, but I would like it a little bit better than this. Other than that, everything else I think is looking really good. I think when the clear gets laid down, I think it'll look a little bit better. But yeah, I'm not going to record the sanding process. I'll record when I throw down the next layer of base. So I'm just going to say, for something that was done outside with some rattle cans and some pretty basic stuff, I think this looks pretty good. Now, is it perfect? 100% no. Is this a show car? No. So what we need to remember is we need to manage expectations. The whole idea was to make this better than it was, to get the car sold and add a little bit more value to the actual car itself. If I spent another 4 hours, could I get this looking perfect? Maybe not. Probably if I spent another like 8 hours, I could get this looking perfect. But how much more am I going to get from all of that time that's put in? Am I going to get an extra 10,000? No, it's not going to happen. So what we have to do is manage expectations and put in work as required. So you guys can see here. Looks pretty good. I think so, at least. So yeah, let's give it a couple of seconds to flash, and then we will try and hit it with the clear coat now. I don't know if it's a dumb move, but we'll see now. Other than that, I think it looks pretty good. The bumper is on, sorry, the exposure's a little bit high right now. I'll turn the camera around in a second. So there we go, the bumper's back on. It's not fitted fully, we still need to set the grill in place, but we're also going to re-clear the headlights, which will be in the next video, and then we need to redo the bonnet itself. So let me quickly show you. So here you go, you can see what we've done. We've gone through and made the fog light holes black, the grill section in the front black, as well as that fog light. Like I said, the grill's currently out. We're going to be redoing the bonnet because we have a lot of clear coat fade, but it looks like it's also damaged some of the base, so we're going to have to go through, rebase that, re-clear that, and then we are going to do a headlight restoration on this. And just for a color comparison, you guys can see here, this is the new color with the clear on it, and then the existing color, and that's in the shade. And then taking it around to the light, you guys can see it's a pretty good match here, right? So
I think that once we get the headlights and bonnet done, I think it's going to look pretty good. So as always, thank you all for watching, and yeah, this cost less than how much? Probably less than $100. All my paints with all the sanding gear and everything, I think it's about 1,500 Rand in total, or 1,400 if we want to try and be like as close as possible. So let's say 1,500, so that's less than $100. I think that's sitting at around $800. Ooh, shit. Less than $100, about $80. So yeah. So the last thing left to actually do on it is just to get some polish and polish over the clear, because there are some imperfections. Let me quickly just show you that now. Like I said, I want to be as transparent with you guys as possible, but also this isn't a perfect job. So as you can see, there is still a little bit here, which I think will be polished out with the clear. The clear over here went a little bit funny. Let me try and see if I can get the ISO to work properly there. So there you can see the clear's a little bit funny, but I think that will also buff out with the polish. Over here we've got a little bit of hazing, so that's all from the overspray. Remember, we did this all outside. It's not a perfect environment, so we will try to do this a little bit better when it comes to spraying the SX itself. For this, we just did this all over there, you know, outside in the back. It's not going to be a perfect job. We have wind, we have dust, we have all of these things. But like I said, this wasn't meant to be a showroom kind of condition paint job. It was just trying to do as best as we could with as little as possible, right? So with the SX, we will try and, I'm still going to try and do the rattle can, just because I want to see how that works. So it's aerosolized color to code that they aerosolize with a fan spray pattern. What we'll do is next time we will pull the car out the garage and we'll set up a kind of makeshift spray booth to try and keep it as clean as possible. And yeah, so as always, thank you guys for watching. Hit the comment button, drop a comment below, hit like, you know, let me know if this is something you guys are interested in. And yeah, as always, love you much, bye.